during the filming of this movie and during that era, the Indiana boy moved to the West Coast in the late 70s, up from San Diego here to Los Angeles in the late 70s, and then gradually found my way into the world of the music business, working at a record company. And when that happened, working at an independent label called Metal Blade Records, that was my first foray into the music business, where I got to work with bands, working behind the scenes, doing everything under the sun, radio, retail, doing album covers, going out on the road, making shirts, whatever it took to help our bands get ahead. We were fortunate enough to have one of our acts, Lizzie Borden, which you saw featured in the film. And that was something that we were very ecstatic about. That was something that it helped put us on the map, even though we had a lot of bands on the label. Independent labels versus the majors, it was night and day. It was trying to get ahead, trying to just make our acts rise above the cream. And then when this movie premiered initially, it was a big deal to everyone on the scene. How did the Metal Years come about?
Well, I got a call from a guy named Paul Collishman, and he was working at IRS World Media. And he asked me, he said he liked the first Decline really a lot and my other films, and asked me if I could do any film I wanted, what would I do? And I said I would do The Decline Part 2, and he said, what would it be about? And I said, well, I'm up on the Strip all the time. It's a pretty amazing music scene up there, so I would do it about the metal music that was going on at the time. And so he hooked me up with a pretty amazing producing team who've gone on to do brilliant things in the world, Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris. And we all sat down and tried to figure out what bands to shoot, and there you go.
And after making several narrative features, what was it like going back into documentary production?
Well, I mean, if I could have spent my whole career shooting docs and actually made a living at it, I probably would have done that, because I really do enjoy that the most. But, you know, once I did this movie, it kind of pushed me forward so that I could do Wayne's World. And then once I did Wayne's World, I couldn't do any other kind of movies. I could only just do goofball comedies. So that's what I did, and they paid me a lot. So I totally sold out. Anyway, yeah, so, I mean, I spent some of the money actually to do Decline Part 3, so at least I did some good there, you know, and this awesome dude named David Pierce, who's in the audience tonight, is helping me with all three of the movies right now, so anyway, thanks, David. Okay, what else?
And as a female director, and just a woman on the scene, not the Sunset Strip scene, I'm talking the scene behind the scenes. Did you feel out of place? I mean, being in charge of a big movie production, especially something like Decline?
I used to do music videos way back in the day, like before anybody else did music videos. I had a company that called Rock and Reel, and whenever heavy metal music started to be the most popular kind of music, I remember walking into a room and meeting the guys in the band, and they would say, sorry, there's no chick that's going to do our videos. So yeah, it was a little bit rough, you know, but these guys were all cool when we filmed, and when I'm behind the camera, I'm a god. So it was okay, you know, it was okay. Talk to someone else, will you?
Well, Penelope, I thought it was important to discuss the production part of the Decline film, since it sort of lasted the test of time in so many different ways. I want to open up the next question in terms of the scene, obviously, to Nadir, Rikki, and Rikki.
You saw how the Sunset Strip was just a gigantic mass of people on the streets wearing the most extravagant outfits. Just 2,000 working stages a night. There was bands playing at every single corner you can ever imagine. You could fly or anywhere. You can do anything pretty much you wanted. There was no radios on the cop cars, so we were able to lie quite a bit back then. I do miss that. So it was quite the scene for me. You know, I grew up in Pasadena, California. I followed Van Halen. I was a big Van Halen guy because I went to Pasadena High, so they lived there. So I was all about Van Halen. So I ended up on the Strip, and the scene took me on this long, confusing life of music that exposed me to some amazing people, to some really horrible situations, and then of course, the growing up and looking back at it just now was pretty. Oh yeah, I haven't seen it in years. I was sweating balls over there. I was like, oof.
The interesting thing is when I sort of came into the scene, I was more familiar with Decline 1, and I didn't really grow up with that much metal. I was listening to, Germs and Black Flag and Adolescence and stuff like that when I was a kid. But then the part of the scene, people don't realize that a lot of the Hollywood rock scene was sort of different factions. I mean, you had the Sunset Strip, but you also had what a lot of us called the kind of gypsy junkie rock and roll, which was the Guns N' Roses, LA Guns, Faster Pussycat, and that's kind of what, when I opened up the Cat House, I was roommates with Tammy, and like it said, we opened it up to get chicks. I mean, that's honestly, all my friends at that time were starting bands called Guns N' Roses and Faster Pussycat and LA Guns, and I was the guy that really had no talent, so I'm like, well, I'll find a place for everybody to hang out. And I think, when I look at what that club did for my career, I wouldn't have anything, whether it's something to brag about, if it wasn't for the Cat House. But I think the Cat House helped create a scene, and we wouldn't have had that scene without the bands. But I'm very proud. I miss a lot of it for the people. I guess a lot of people that are here weren't part of that scene. But people say, "Oh, was it really that crazy?" And I'm like, "It really was. It was beautiful.
Really was.
It was dangerous." And the beauty of the rock scene then is it gave all of us that were misfits a place to hang out and be safe. I mean, the Cat House was the places that we'd get kicked on and spit on and harassed, and it was a dark place that we could all hang out and be safe, and it will never, ever, ever be duplicated, and it was incredible. And some of us found ways to make money through that scene, and some of us believed we would and didn't, but I miss it a lot, and I wish you guys could have been part of it.
Rikki? Rikki? Okay.
Yeah, it was neat. No, what was interesting is that we came from the East Coast, and so there was a scene happening there. And what was happening at the time, we were a young band. I was the oldest one at 22, and Bobby Dahl being the youngest at 19. And, in Maryland, the drinking age at that time was 18 years old, so that's where we played all the time. So. But we do that tri-state area, but a lot of it was Baltimore and Hammerjacks and that whole scene, and that was it. Right. Yeah, and that was a whole thing here. And then when we came here, we were absolutely nothing, and had to completely weed out what we were supposed to do.
How to belong. How
And
to fit.
London was big at the time, and Witch, and all these bands, and we had to navigate those waters. And I think we were so aggressive about doing it that's what helped us get an audience, rapidly. But we were used to playing, 3, 4, 5 nights a week back east, so we would go out to Covina and do these top 40, shows, you know what I mean? And then come into Hollywood and do our 1 night a month or 2 nights a month or whatever. It was just, we kind of played the game differently, mainly because we didn't know any better. But it worked out great for us, obviously. And, Ricky's right. That the scene will never be duplicated. Rock now at this point in time in popular music is only 6% of the market. And, wow, what a 6%. But, unfortunately, I don't even think that there is a way. It is possible, I suppose, that the popularity could soar to the point. But the way that the city operates now, you wouldn't be able to have the people hanging on the streets and all that kind of stuff. So that scene wouldn't feel the same. So it was magic.
If I want to say one thing, people always, because I hosted Headbangers Ball and everybody was like, well, Nirvana killed the Hollywood scene. And the thing that I believe killed the Hollywood rock scene more than anything was when they passed the law that you couldn't pass out flyers. Yeah. Because when you were allowed to pass, people don't understand. You would go to the Sunset Strip the next morning, and the streets were just rainbow pieces of thick
Those
of
were
paper.
all London flyers.
And that was what they were. People would have contests how high they could post flyers. You would see how high. And because you had every band, some were big, some were starting out. all over the Sunset Strip, and there was a scene. It didn't matter where you'd go. Maybe you were Sunset Strip clubs, maybe you were going to Cat House or Bordello, but you'd all know go to the Rainbow at 2 a.m. because that's where the stragglers were, and you could maybe get laid if you didn't get laid anywhere else. But everybody was out there passing out flyers, and I think the law, when they stopped passing out flyers, killed the Sunset Strip, and people would go see bands because bands were playing. They didn't necessarily know who exactly was playing. And now, if you want to see a band, you'll turn on your computer.
Yeah.
And there's no
we
social
figured
scene
out
anymore.
a trick, though, which was really pretty cool. We didn't have any money, but our guitar player, CeCe DeVille, had parents that had a print shop. Okay, so we would print those, and then when we couldn't really hit Hollywood, we'd go to the concerts, Sammy Hagar, whatever was happening, and we'd recruit people to go hand out flyers there because nobody was looking to kind of thwart that, you know what I mean, at those shows. So we just went for the big shows and started promoting at those. And I'll never forget, I mean, I swear this is like sticks in my mind forever. We hit, and I mentioned that Sammy Hagar, we hit the Sammy Hagar show. I think we gave out like some ridiculous amount of like 10,000 flyers or something like that. And we came to the Troubadour to play, and as we're driving up the street, we're like, oh my God, what if there's nobody here? What if there's nobody here? And as we pulled up, there was a line around the block, and we're like, oh my God, this is for us? You know?
That's how I
And
felt
that-
at the movie tonight.
Good one.
What was your perception of the film in terms of how you were approached? How was Poison approached to take part in this film?
We had gotten a deal on Enigma Records, which was an independent, and that was the record that was out at the time. Look What the Cat Dragged In, but it was on Enigma, and we were starting to get a lot of traction right then, and we were getting asked to do a lot of interviews, and I believe there was other interviews that day actually that we
I had no
I'm sorry
idea.
sorry to say.
No,
It saved you on production money, so don't worry
Yeah,
about
right.
it.
Well, that's right. You're right. You're right. That's what you were already on a soundstage and you were doing something, and it's
Yes.
all coming back to me now. Yeah, and you know, John and Val would say things to me like, "Well, how about Aerosmith?" And I would go, "Are you out of your mind? They're not going to talk to us." And they go, "We'll go ask them." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" They said yes. So you know, that was cool. And I'm probably the same thing with you guys. They would never talk to us. And then you did. Do you remember any of this? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just don't remember like how it was booked, but I do remember, you know, and it was exciting because I mean it's real film cameras and it wasn't little
I
video
know, real
cameras.
35
Yeah,
millimeter
it was
film
pretty cool.
cameras. That I know.
Actual film. Rikki, Rachtman, as far as the club is concerned, do you remember? Once
I
again,
have a hard time
Blur Part
remembering
2.
much. That was I never talked about the drugs and alcohol, but a year after that film was when I quit drinking and doing drugs right after that. So it's always fun for me to watch it. But at that time that I filmed that, drinking the beer, I remember that we shot that part at 11 o'clock in the morning. I was still fucked up. And Tammy said, "Yeah, they're gonna shoot us at the Cat House." And I'm like, "Well, cool." And they're like, "And they want to talk to you about the cat." It might have been you that asked me, or somebody said, "And they want to talk to you about the Cat House." I'm like, I never. That was the Cat House's 1 year, and I never thought that we'd still be selling T-shirts today. And so I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." That was my first time ever on camera. And I just remember them telling me I had to be there at 11, and Tammy had to be there at like 5. I didn't think that was fair. And I just remember them shooting us and talking about the club, and it was just, for me, I was the guy that wasn't in the band. For them to talk about my baby, the Cat House, I just thought it was just the coolest thing in the world.
Well, as you know, we, as London, has always got some sort of a interesting intro into anything that we've have done. So with Penelope, it was very unique because we didn't really know if they really wanted us. So someone in the office at IRS and Sunset Boulevard communicated with us saying, "Hey, would you guys like to be in this movie?" And first thing out of our mouth is, "Is there any money in it?" It's like,
And we said no.
but I did get paid.
We paid you?
Yeah, I got
I can't
2 Gs.
believe I didn't get paid.
$2,000.
I didn't.
Well, I guess you gotta just suck up to the right person. I don't know. Yeah, and basically, I think we had a meeting with you, and you told me that there was forces within or surrounding me that did not want me in the movie. So I was like, "Really?" And you go, "And that's why I wanted you in the movie." That's what you told me.
Oh, I did?
Yes, you did.
Freaky.
Which is great.
I told her to say that.
No, here's the thing. The basis for me, the basis of all 3 Decline movies is that you can have all the famous guys talking, okay, but they're not playing the music. I wanted people that were unknown because I felt like that's where, you know, the real deal happens. And so that's the way it's always been with the Decline movies, is that I want to feature as players the unknown bands. And Megadeth at the time was skating the edge because they were just about ready to make it. And it would have been wrong for me to have Guns N' Roses in there. And so it all worked out just fine.
Yeah, I was always curious about that because they were such a staple on the Sunset Strip, and just the name Guns N' Roses is iconic with Los Angeles. So that was always something to know as far as why, of all bands, weren't they in it. And Rikki, you actually started out in the punk scene, really, before you sort of made this foray into rock and metal.
Like 79. I mean, 80, well, then you can date me. I was 4 years old in 79. But when back then I wasn't going to see the rock and roll bands. I was going to see, this is probably before, I hate to say this before anybody's time, but they used to do, I think, Wednesday and Thursday at the Starwood was known as New Wave Night. And that's when they used to see, that's when they had, the DJ was Rodney, and we'd see all the greatest punk rock bands, but also you'd see one day you'd see the Germs, and the next day would be like Human League and Gang of Four or something. It was just awesome. But I remember one day, because all the chicks were going to see this band called Quiet Riot. And I didn't understand why Quiet Riot was the biggest band in my high school. And I remember seeing them, and I didn't really like them, but I thought their guitarist was so cool, who was Randy Rhoads. And I remember seeing them, and everybody's like, oh, you went to go see Quiet Riot, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah.
91, 92, 93, that was the end of that era of those bands. Who were struggling on the Sunset Strip, and even the ones that were signed, the ones that had made it, when grunge hit, Nirvana hit, that was really the end, and that has been used as an example many, many times. Rikki, Rachtman.
I get in this argument all the time because I think I might be the only person that disagrees with that statement. Because when I remember when we got. Okay, I'm not the only person.
Well, Rikki, talk about the shift of what record companies.
No, when Nirvana Bleach came out, I was still into metal, and I listened to Nirvana. I was like, that album is freaking awesome. And Alice in Chains were still a sort of metal band, and there was no way that the same way the music was back then would have stayed the same with Nirvana or without Nirvana. Things just changed, and a new band called Nirvana came. They didn't kill the scene. They were just different. The scene would have changed anyway. I mean, I still love Nirvana as much as I love Slayer.
Well, okay, all right, stop clapping because I disagree with that. Well, here's what I think. Being in these scenes so many years, I think that I really love that punk movement because it was anger expressed, okay? And I really love the metal scene because it was more anger expressed. And when it came to the grunge scene, I couldn't stand it because it was anger turned inward. It was depressing. Okay, so I've got like two people that agree with me. I don't care. Okay. But that's the thing that bothered me about grunge, is that it was not outward expression. It was just kind of depressing. So, but I love you anyway. And I'm a has-been too.
Don't make me this. I agree. I mean, a lot of it was just like apathy or this or that. But I just kind of listened to the music. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. But like I said, I'll never forget when I first got Bleach, and I was like, this record's so great, So, but I agree with what you're saying.
Granted, it was a breath of fresh air, but the glut of bands that were signed, that were on the scene, it wasn't what the labels, what MTV was playing, what the magazines were playing. Rikki, Rockett, from Look What the Cat Dragged In to Native Tongue. Did you see a shift in sales? Did you see a shift in attendance at Poison shows?
We didn't see a shift in sales until Native Tongue, which we replaced our guitar player.
Right.
And so there could be I could attribute part of it to that, which was a huge part of it, and the scene was changing. Plus, our music literally sounded different.
Yes,
we were not the same sounding band. I'm still proud of that record. I think it's a great record. It's one of the best records. I played really well on that record, but it was different, and it wasn't what the doctor ordered. So of course, but there was a huge shift in styles of music at that time. But we quietly sold 1 million records on that record. You know what I mean? But it wasn't the 5 and 6 million that we had done on all the other records. There was a lot going on at the time within our band too. I mean, we had I always, thought of Poison as coming on the Hollywood scene, hoping to create the scene and then exiting before it exploded. Because we were off touring after that, and it was 9 months of touring, record, video tour, promotional tour. But we didn't sleep for years. By the time it was 1994, and we started to see that change, and we had a new guitar player, and the music was different, and all that kind of stuff. We were kind of ready for a rest, honestly, and the drug addiction was so high in the band that we couldn't function, literally, and we were worried about Cece dying. I was afraid any day I was going to hear, get the phone call, you know what I mean? So I started not to care about Poison. I thought, if I'm not going to care about Poison, I don't want to do it, because I don't want to come out there half-assed, you know what I mean? And so we just shut down for a couple of years. We just said, we're just not going to do anything. I'm not going to go out there and fake it and try to do grunge, because to me, I think the original grunge bands that did come out, they probably weren't even called grunge at the time. Now that I come back, when Nirvana came out and Alice in Chains opened shows for us in the Bay Area and stuff, they were really cool. Jammed on Kiss songs with us. I think that a lot of other bands just took one aspect of that grunge scene and did it to death, and then that became the scene. And that happens a lot in modern music. They take a little chunk of it, the thing that's the most obvious, and then they just do it to death, and then eventually that just kills the scene.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened, unfortunately, with many scenes.
Well, I'm that guy that gets hit and gets back up in your face. So, yeah, I'm still doing London. Just,
And
I have, my kids are growing up, I'm done with all that, and I'm basically putting the Starship on, supreme power right now. So I'm putting all my power into it. Okay. London has always been number one because, it's given me all the freedom that I've ever wanted. I don't recommend the music business to everyone, but it's not for everyone. Nikki Sixx started the band, and I just kind of took that flag and ran with it. And
would you say you still have that make it no matter what mentality in 2014?
I never did it for Megan. I think that I was pretty set back then. I never liked cash. I think it was just a matter of there was so much blow, you just don't see straight. I mean, when people, I see young kids in the bathroom, they go, "Oh, hey, you want a line?" And they would a little, and I'm like, "Oh. Is that yours?" And he goes, "Yeah, you want a bump?" And I think, that would be like one side. That would be that gram. And now it's like, you think back, you look at that guy that you saw there, it's not the guy that's sitting here. That guy was out of his mind. I almost brought my kids, and I'm glad I didn't. But, I'm still alive here, and I'm so glad to see Rikki and Penelope and Rikki Rachtman. And, of course, William I've known 28 years.
Skateboarding to work.
That's right. So it's great to be here. It's a great movie. It helped me in my career. Everybody in the world knows who the hell I am. Remember who I am, because I ain't going nowhere else.
I just love you, Nadir.